Well, hello, YouTube family. How are you guys doing this evening? This is Queen Renee coming at you with another video. So on today's video, once again, I'm doing a little something different. So first of all, this is my channel where I pretty much do or say what I want when I want, depending on how I feel and the day. So on today, what I am going to do is I am going to do a little video. Usually I would do well, not usually, but um, I would do a makeup and mayhem. But instead of makeup and mayhem, I'm not going to do that today. Why? Because I have actually already put my makeup on today, and I don't feel like taking it off and redoing it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a smoked turkey, crackers, and cheese mukbang today. While I tell you a little known Black history fact. It may be more known than we think, but I am going to discuss this Black history fact. So give me just a second because I have to find my notes that I have on my phone. So today is going to be mukbang and mayhem. I am going to eat this. I did record a mukbang that I never uploaded. I'm hopefully going to upload this one, but we're going to see. But this is going to be a mukbang and mayhem, where I am going to eat my smoked turkey and crackers and cheese while telling you this story. And let's see. I'm going to give you the definition of mayhem. Mayhem is violent or damaging disorder or chaos. It is a noun, and it is, the historical law is the crime of maliciously injuring or maiming someone originally so as to render them defenseless or render the victim defenseless. So that is mayhem. Now, for those of you who are wanting to know what I am drinking this evening, I am having Josh Prosecco with some delicious red Villa Vineyards wine. I just put a little something in it to kind of take that bite of Prosecco, the little bite that it has, off. But anywho, moving on. Now tonight, our story that we are going to tell tonight has to do with, let's see. I'm sorry, y'all. I should have had this geared up before we started. But this actual story is about George Stinney. Stinney, I guess that's how you say it. George Stinney Jr. And he was a 14-year-old that was actually executed and then subsequently exonerated 70 years later. 70 years too late. So, this miscarriage of justice took place in Alcolu, and I know that I'm not saying that right. And it's spelled Alcolu, South Carolina, in March 1944. So, the young 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. was arrested after two young white girls, were discovered brutally murdered in a watery ditch. Now, at the time of George's arrest, he was home with his older brother and his younger sister. George and his older brother Johnny were arrested. And they were taken away. Now, they were arrested without their parents being home, without any legal representation, and things of that matter. Now, with that being said, we already know that back then, they didn't care about the fact that there was no adult with this child when they snatched him up and took him to jail. Apparently, what they're saying is that him and his little sister were the last reported people to have seen these two girls alive. Now, let's stop there. Let's talk about that. Who would have known that they were the last two people to see these girls alive? And apparently, as we found out 70 years later, but we already knew, that is not true. Because there had to be someone else that saw them. So, George's sister, little sister, she says that, and her name is Amy Ruffner. She states that the police were looking for someone to blame it on, so they used her brother as a scapegoat. Now, on June 16, 1944, George Stinney, why do I want to call him Stinney? Stinney was executed. And he became the youngest person in modern time to be put to death. And after 70 years, George Stinney was exonerated of the double murders. Now, this horrendous moment for the Jim Crow South tormented has tormented civil rights advocates for years. Now, why? Because it's a clear case of Jim Crow laws. Of you don't have a leg to stand on. If you're a black person and they come and decide that they're going to use you as the scapegoat for any crimes and anything that has happened in that area, there is absolutely nothing that you can do to stop that. So, on the day that he was arrested, George was interrogated in a small room by himself without his parents or an attorney. The police alleged that George confessed to the killings because he wanted to have sex with one of the girls. Now, he is a 14-year-old boy. Especially back then, in 1944, we're looking at young men weren't so sexualized, if that makes sense. Young girls at that age were married, yes. 12, 13, 14 were being married off. But young men of that age, they were not as advanced as young girls, which is still the case these days, but it is what it is. Young men at the age of 14 now are a little bit more hypersexualized because of our environment and the things that they are exposed to. But back in that day, a 14-year-old boy was just a little boy. Different from a 13, 14-year-old girl who could be the mother of, have babies and be married and all of that. And most likely married to older men. At the age of 13, 14, these young girls married to men in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, things of that nature. But I digress. That's not the story that we're telling today. So anyways, the day that he was executed, he was also executed with a man named Bruce Hamilton. And Bruce Hamilton was 21. And they both entered the death house of the state prison. And both were executed on June 16, 1944. Now, if y'all see me keep looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. So, Jim Price, the Columbia Record AP, stated this. So, George Stinney was rushed to trial, with his trial taking only 2 hours to complete, and a jury deliberating for just 10 minutes. Now, let's pause there. Let's talk about that. Who in their right mind can try a murder case, a double murder case of anyone in 2 hours? Not really possible. And for the jury to have only taken 10 minutes to deliberate on the fate of this child tells you a whole lot. Because no one, from the prosecutors to the jury, were truly looking for justice for these two young children. They were looking for someone to pin it on, and most definitely it wasn't going to be on no white guy, because they was going to pin that on. Period. So, after the jury deliberated for 10 minutes, of course, they found George guilty, and they convicted him of murder on April 24th, 1944. He was sentenced to die by execution and at the time he was 14 years old. He was 14, and by the way, 14 was the age of criminal responsibility. So at the age of 14, according to the law, you are of age of criminal responsibility. Now, he did have a lawyer, and his lawyer, who was a local political figure, he made the decision not to acquit. Not acquit. He made the decision not to appeal the conviction. Now, first of all, it's a young black boy. That they don't care whether or not he dies or not. And maybe they do. But what they care about, they don't care if he dies. They don't give two shits if he dies. But they don't want to see him go free. Because they have decided that regardless of the fact that you have no evidence, he's guilty anyway. Why? Because I'm white and I say so. So he's guilty. So anyway, it goes on to say that there was practically no evidence presented and showed how a young black child was railroaded by an all-white justice system. As I stated before, their only sole purpose was to passed judgment and killed his child. Because they had absolutely no sympathy for us nor our children. At any time, they could decide that we had done something wrong. And even though they couldn't prove it, it didn't really matter. They were going to do whatever it took to kill one of us or more. So, up to the point where he was recently exonerated. Now, 70 years later, after they had sentenced this child to be executed in the electric chair, years later, they decided that there was no evidence and that he didn't do it. So he was exonerated 70 years later. Now, when they say that he had confessed, which is what they said he had confessed to killing these two children, two young girls, because he actually wanted to have sex with one of them, is what they said. No. Cheese. Smoked turkey. So good. Shouldn't be eating the crackers, but I love a good cracker. Anyway. There was no record, no written record of his confession. So even though throughout the years there were people that for whatever reason, some white person probably got a hold to it that, one of those people that just find that white people are have been so wrong to us, and that we had not gotten justice for so many things, went in and tried to find a written confession from this young man, which in turn they never found. Now, back in 1944, being that they were in Georgia or whatever, I guarantee you this young man probably couldn't even read and write. And he would have never been able to even write a confession. But there was none on file. Now they say that there were some new facts in the case coming to light. Now I don't know what new facts in the case came to light, but neither here nor there. Because you know as well as I do that they'll say something, some little snidbit of garbage like that. Oh, we got new facts that came to the light. What new facts did you have that you didn't have then? Somebody tell me. Because I'm confused and I don't understand. There were no new facts that came to light. Y'all just know for a fact that your people maliciously indicted and convicted this young man of a double murder that he didn't do. So, with these quote unquote new facts in the case that came to light, Circuit Judge Carmen Mullen vacated George's conviction. And what does that mean? Really, it means nothing. Now, he may still have, I'm pretty sure he still has, family that is alive, that I guess that means something, that he is no longer on the books as a convicted double murderer of children. But that does not save him. He'd been dead for 70 years before. 70 years before you even thought to remove that conviction from that man, to exonerate him. 70 years. Okay. Anyway, because I'm going to keep talking and it's making me mad. Because you're full of trash. And I don't understand why you feel like you saying the in with new facts coming to the light. What new facts? What new facts do you have? Did you find the killer? Did somebody come out and confess? I don't hear that. I don't see that. I don't see no evidence of that. So what new facts do you have? What new facts do you have? There are no new facts that came to light. And just that mere sentence makes me angry. And if you are looking at me and you're wondering why, I say that mere sentence of there were new facts that came to light makes me angry, then you'll never, ever get it. You'll never get it. You'll never understand it. And I can't make you understand it. But maybe make it make sense to me. Make it make sense. Tell me what new light, what facts you got. You don't have any. Anyway, the judge remarked and said, and I quote, I can think of no greater injustice than the violation of one's constitutional rights, which has been proven to me in this case. I'm gonna eat these crackers and this smoked turkey and this cheese. While I think about what it is she just said. Because what she said, and I'm gonna read that again. And the reason I'm gonna read it again is because if you don't get it, like I just said, if you don't get it, you never will. I can think of no greater injustice than the violation of one's constitutional rights, which has been proven in this case. Now, I'm going to tell you why that upsets me as well. Constitutional rights is one thing. But I can think of no greater injustice than to be killed by a so-called law of the land, a freaking justice system that is here to see whether or not you are truly guilty or not. And the biggest injustice that I see is the justice system didn't even care, which it still does not care today, whether a man is guilty or not. It's what you bring to the table. Doesn't matter if you did it or you didn't. It matters what they can pin on you. And half of the time, they ain't even got to prove. They are supposed to prove you guilty without a reasonable doubt. And 8 times out of 9, they can't even do that. But it depends on what type of money you got and who you got backing you. The justice system in the United States is worth nothing. If they know they can't prove it, they'll plead you out. But if you don't plead, they'll find some way to get you with no evidence. That's the type of justice system we have here in the United States. So, like I said, if you don't understand why that statement alone makes me angry, you will never understand and you'll never get it. But moving on. A former cellmate of George's at the time issued a statement saying that the boy denied the charges. It is said that George said, "I didn't do it," Wilford Hunter said Stinney told him, he said, "Why would they kill me for something I didn't do?" The case has haunted the town since 1944. The Stinney family claimed that George's confession was coerced. Of course it was. And that he had an alibi. His sister. His sister said she was with him at the alleged time of the crime. They were watching their family's cow graze near the railroad tracks by their home when the two girls rode over on their bicycles and asked them a question. George was accused of murdering the girls as they picked wildflowers. The Stinney family fled their home, according to George's brother, Charles, because George's conviction and execution was something my family believed could happen to any of us in the family. Therefore, we made a decision for the safety of the family to leave it be. Charles Stinney wrote in his sworn statement. Now, that's a hard one. That's a hard pill to swallow because his family decided he's going to be killed. And there pretty much ain't nothing we can do about that. And we need to leave it be. We need to walk away from it. We need to leave it be. Because if we don't, they could come and take the rest of us or any of us and do the same thing to us. Now, as a parent, what would you do? Really? What would you do? As a mother, and I'm pretty sure his mother was like, we gotta do something to get my kid. Stay out my kitchen! We gotta do something to save my son. Get my son. But back then, them daddies made them decisions. And I'm pretty sure he didn't want to, but he felt he had no choice to sacrifice one to save the rest. We know if we go out here, ain't nothing good gonna come of it. If we try to save him, nothing good's gonna come of it. And we may end up with more of our children dead, or all of us. So, we need to get up out of here. And that's what they did. And you can't fault them because you got more than one child. There's a Charles, there's a Johnny, there's the little girl Amy. So that's at least 3 more children. Plus his wife and him. That's 5 people. And if they try to fight it, those with the upper hand probably would have killed them all. But can you imagine how hard that decision was to make? So, young George was executed in the electric chair only 84 days after the girl's death. Today, a death sentence is almost automatically appealed, and it could take years, even decades, before an execution. In which time, new evidence could be discovered, as in the case of George Stinney. I'm still waiting for them to tell me what new evidence there was. But anywho, George Stinney wasn't even 5 foot tall, and he weighed less than 100 pounds. The strap on the electric chair couldn't contain his frail body. It was reported that George had to sit on books to reach the headpiece of the electric chair. You are going to execute someone that you can't even reach. The headpiece. Okay. So, the Stinney family continued to demand a new trial. So they did try in January of 2014. Now, they left, but they continued to demand a new trial, even though he'd already been killed. Like I said, that's pretty much for the fact that they probably just did not want it to end with his name being tainted and soiled, because he really didn't do it. In January of 2014, a judge agreed to hear new testimony and arguments in the case. Judge Mullen heard sworn testimony from George's brothers and sisters, a witness from the search party that discovered the bodies, and experts who challenged his confession. That's the only new evidence, is that they challenged the confession that they couldn't find. So then they say a child psychiatrist testified that George's confession should have never been trusted. The psychiatrist, Amanda Sales, stated that it's my professional opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that the confession given by George Stinney Jr. on or about March 24, 1944, is best characterized as a coerced complaint, false confession. It's not reliable. The Stinney family maintained that they never wanted a pardon, because a pardon is forgiving someone for something they did, said Norma Robinson, George Stinney's niece. That wasn't an option for my mother, my aunt, or my uncle. We weren't asking forgiveness. They wanted and received a full exoneration of George Stinney's name. In December of 2014, 70 years after George was executed, George Carmen Mullen vacated the conviction against Stinney. So, once again, I say, there never was any new evidence. There never was any new facts that came to the light. The same facts that they had in 1944 were the same facts that she had in 2014. They knew he did not confess. They knew there was no written confession. They knew there was no evidence. But yet and still, he was still convicted. So, on that note, once again, this is Mukbang and Mayhem. And there you go. So, if you are, and this is, I ate pretty much, but I do want to thank you guys for coming to my channel. If you made it this far into the channel, into the story, I do want to thank you. And I ask that you share, like, and subscribe to my channel. Also, comment on my channel. And if you like this little so-called mukbang, I don't know about mukbangs. That's not my thing, but maybe I'll get there. If this does okay, I might do some more. Who knows? But anyway, once again, I do want to thank you guys for coming over to my channel, watching my video, and I want you all to have a wonderfully blessed evening. Bye.